Next up is Chen from Hakka Finance, talking about playing with Ethereum, the map editor of electronic cash. Hakka Finance is a set of decentralized derivative and original financial instruments, forming an all-inclusive ecosystem of tools that allow users to pursue financial sovereignty. Let's welcome Chen.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Hi, hi. How? Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Ping, and today I'm going to talk about playing with Ethereum, the map editor of electronic cash. And I want to discuss the unique properties of Ethereum that allows us to create custom games with real money and introduce some of the projects that I've built that explores these kind of intersections. Okay, so this is Ping, and I'm the founder of Palace and Hakka Finance, which is a DeFi brand. And my journey starts from 2016. I used to be an Ethereum miner once I was still in university. And then I started to learn about smart contract coding and doing research of DeFi. So first, in terms of the term electronic cash, it is in fact comes from the original Bitcoin white paper, Bitcoin a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, and that was the old days that the term blockchain didn't exist. So the purpose of Bitcoin to be built is to allow us to send money via the internet. And I guess many of you are quite familiar with this metaphor, which is that Bitcoin as feature phone and Ethereum as smartphone. And this kind of analogy is often used to illustrate that the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Bitcoin is simple and it is specified for payment system, and it is the very first blockchain technology. Thus, Ethereum is an all-powering platform that allowed users to build their own application on top of it while sharing the same secured infrastructure. Yeah, and this also empowers people to build their own application on top of it, which is quite similar with what you can do on, let's say, app stores on iPhone. Yeah, and by writing smart contract, we developers can have arbitrary business logic on top of this blockchain, and we can deal with real financial value instead of just data. So what is a map editor exactly? A map editor is an extension of a video game that allows players to not only play with the content the dev created, but also let them to have their own contents within the game. Like, for example, they can build their own maps, their own levels, mods, and even with an entirely different gameplays that have totally different objectives. And there's many games that are famous with its map editors, like, for example, Warcraft 3. Like, many mini games are built by its players instead of their original developers. And there's a famous game called Dota 2, which started as a player-made map in Warcraft 3, but eventually spin off to be a standalone game. Yeah. We also see sandbox game, like, for example, Minecraft, which shares the similarity with map editor, that it heavily relies on the content players create instead of what the dev have defined. Yeah. And there's even some games that the entire gameplay itself is map editors, like Roblox. It is 100% customer generate content. And then this is where Ethereum comes in. Ethereum is at the intersection of electronic cash and map editor, and has benefit from both sides. I mean, from having the ability to be customized and the ability to handle cash flows. Yeah, and I guess many of you already know Ethereum as the so-called programmable money, or nowadays we usually call it DeFi, the money legal. But few understand that it is also a map editor that allows you to play with real money. And this is something that traditional video game devs cannot do. And this also opened up a unique opportunity for us to build like a large-scale so-called social experiment that I'm very certain that like economists and psychologists will envy us by a lot. Like you can have arbitrary experiment and have real incentives with real currency that usually very difficult to implement in real world. And then I'm going to give some examples to show how this kind of intersections happens by sharing some products that I have built. And the first one will be black hole swap. Black hole swap is a DEX that specializes for stable currencies. So it's quite similar with Curve, but it is in fact based on the well-known Uniswap's XYK constant product formula, but undergoes a linear transformation to be the orange line in the graph. And since it is relatively simple, like it is only doing a linear transformation, so this already allows us to make a minimal tweak that with huge differences in terms of how it works. So this illustrates the power of customization on top of existing products. And the second project I would like to share is Hakka Intelligence. It is another product I've built, and it is a prediction market that aiming to utilize the so-called collective intelligence of human. Yeah. So this is a prediction market that players can submit their predictions with a stake, and turns out to gain profit or incur loss based on their accuracy. Yeah. So here we can make prediction of some future events, like for example, the price of cryptocurrencies in the future. So we ask people to make predictions and also put money on what they have predict. And each submission is scored by the cosine similarity of their submission and the actual outcome. And players will get profit. I mean, they will get back their stake directly proportional to the accuracy times the stake they have commit. Yeah. And this mechanism does not rely on deep market liquidity like what I guess Augur or Polymarket relies on. All you need to do is to be as accurate as possible, and then you will get rewarded. Yeah. And interestingly, we found out that even though individuals tend to make bad guess, summing up all the submissions from people surprisingly gives us a good insight of what is going to happen in the future. And this kind of nature is quite interesting. And the third project I would like to introduce is Shitcoin. And it is not live yet, but since I think it's quite unique, so I still want to share it with you in advance. So this is an NFT project with a marking nature that in this game, we want to grant privilege to players who have made bad investments. And what we do is we ask people to spend their so-called shitcoins to mint an NFT monsters, and as long as their coin's price falls, their monster will become stronger. So it's like the opposite of how we have a sense of financial outcome. Yeah, and this game's mechanics reflects the current trend of meme coin trading and the irrational hype that can drive their price up and down, but ultimately fail. And we want to let bad investors to have a sense of relief, not on their financial status, but on this interesting product. Yeah, and here what I want to share is you already can see the boundaries between financial instrument and game blurs. So you can consider it as applying the gamifying techniques on a serious financial product, or you can consider it as building a game but plugging in the ability to play with real money. And these two different kind of mindsets inspired us to build new products. And in the next part, I'm going to share a real example of how can we learn from video games and try to apply the lesson we learned into blockchain. So, like for example, yesterday once I was playing AOE 2, I noticed an interesting phenomenon on building constructions. Like I want to build a castle on the hill, and I find out that by applying villagers to making such a building, it does not give me a linear increase in terms of speed. And I found out it was once I triple the villagers involved, I will get 2 times the speed. So which means 3 villagers for 2x and 9 for 4x. Yeah, and this mechanism is interesting because it is not linear, so it might be not so intuitive, but remain reasonable. And then the next step is to trying to apply this kind of mechanism to probably DeFi or NFT projects. So how things get started. First, to gain more insights, I first plot this formula on GeoGebra and have some brief observation on the curve. Then I quickly realized that this formula could not be applied to address-based right calculation. Like for example, if I want to use this formula for the voting power of token stakers, then it won't work because since it is a sublinear function, user will tend to split their stakes on multiple addresses to take advantage of the system. Yeah, and that is what exactly Gitcoin quadratic funding have suffered from. Like people tend to spam to have multiple identities and to donate to get privilege from the reward pool. Yeah, but if we already have a reliable identity system, like for example 10K NFT projects, then we can apply this mechanism on top of it. Yeah. So what I'm considering for now is I probably can make a maybe token plus NFT joint staking mechanism, like what BAYC have done on their token ApeCoin, something like that. Yeah. Or I can also probably consider to apply this kind of techniques on like the rate limit of a specific operation. Like maybe we can let our NFT monsters to have a rate limit of like maybe the battles they can join per day, and once they stake more governance token on top of each of their token, then the limit will increase, but it will be a sublinear function instead of directly proportional to how many tokens they have. Yeah. So this is a real-world examples of how can we learn from the games and some fascinating mechanism and try to turn those insights into financial applications. Yeah. And in closing, I would like to recall the topic. So Ethereum is indeed a map editor of electronic cash that helps you to create arbitrary, you can call it games or applications that can alter real financial value but remain programmable. Yeah. And also I would like to quote the famous anthropology book, Homo Ludens, which explores the fundamental of the role of playing of human civilization. Yeah. The boundaries between playing games and financial products and human culture blurs, and we as the Ethereum developer is privileged to create such applications that we can make custom games with real money, and the potential of innovative and creativity is maximized in this kind of environment, and that does not exist in the past, and that is what I want to emphasize. And also, as long as Ethereum, one of the most significant scale of human coordination machine, continue to function, the possibilities are endless. Yeah, but just one reminder, which is all of the application on top of blockchain, especially Ethereum, will remain more or less related to financial or a sense of ownership. Yeah, because we will need this kind of value to justify the nature that we'll need to pay gas for using the blockchain. Yeah. So I think that is the only limit and nothing else. Yeah. So we appreciate this kind of possibilities, and I invite everyone to explore Ethereum and its bright future. And there's a plus one, which is I've made a game with, once I want to test out GitHub Copilot, which is a blockchain-based 2048 game. So it is totally on-chain, and what you need to do is to write a solver, like either in Solidity or Viper, and try to implement an algorithm that can help you to make high score in this game. And to make things more interesting, I have already put like some bounties on it. Like I guess it was 0.5 ETH and some matics on the other blockchain. Yeah. And your goal is to write a solver, and it will need to be an interactive solver that the main program will pass in a game and a deck, a board that represents the current state of the game, and your solver will need to replies with an operation, like you want to go up or down or left or right. Yeah. And by doing this recursively, you will end up to have a score. And the objective here is to create a solver that is able to make a high score, but since it is fully on-chain, you will be limited by the gas spent. Yeah, unless I'm certain that you cannot exceed the block gas limit, which is 30 million gas on Ethereum and like a few million on Polygon. Yeah, and what makes things interesting is that the game is fully permissionless, and by playing that game, you are certain that as long as you are the highest, the player that gains the highest score, you are promised to get the bounty. Yeah, you don't need to trust the developer of the application, and nor you need to trust that the game is fair, because it is fully open sourced. And by building this kind of campaign in, like, let's say, Web 2 video games, you are not allowed to have this kind of permissionlessness, because you will more or less need to trust the operator of that so-called game. But on Ethereum, everything is permissionless. Yeah, so you can check it by yourself, and yeah, there's some money for you to win. If you have spare time, maybe today or tomorrow, then yeah, I invite you to try to get the bounty. Yeah, and I've shared the link down there, or you can find Chen TW on Twitter, then you'll find that post. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Any question from the audience?
Hi, can you talk more about Hakka Finance new product? Like you mentioned before, and especially the relationship with your new product and the Age of Empire game. Thank you.
Oh, I guess you're referring to the examples I just gave. For now, I'm thinking of applying the formula to maybe Shikoimon, but Shikoimon itself is still under development. So I'm afraid I have not much thing to share for now.
Do we have other questions? Okay, then thank you, Chen. Okay, so now we are going to take